Whatever happened to the Red Hood and the Outlaws series? Well, it eventually turned into the Dark Trinity, which a lot of people love, myself included. But DC decided to go in a different direction with Red Hood in the recent years. But they also signed a deal with Webtoons where they would bring some original content over there, such as Wayne Family Adventures. But they're also bringing over a Red Hood and the Outlaws Webtoons series, which, being the huge Red Hood fan that I am, I have to cover here. This is the Comicstorian channel where I take some comic books, break them down into audio dramas, and give you a narrative back on the whole thing. The idea here is so that you can keep up with your favorite comic books and then run out and go buy them for your collection, or in the case of Webtoons, go to the Webtoons website reading the next chapter. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, G Fuel and Shortboxed. G Fuel will give you a bunch of energy using the code COMICS at checkout, and Shortboxed has a link down below to give you a shot at winning a free comic book and teach you about their app. The first chapter of the Red Hood Webtoon storyline is Two Birds, One Clone. Long ago, before Jason Todd became the Red Hood, he went by another name, Robin. His first night at Batman's side, he was asked a very simple question. What do you see? The young boy looks out over Gotham and says that he saw crime, fear, and sickness. Batman then told him to look again, but use his real eyes. Jason takes off his mask, looking around, and Batman says that this is the world that he has trained him to save. He'll need to love it, or really, what would be the point? Jason asks what has the world ever done for him or his parents, and Batman says that he used to ask the same thing. He can help make him into the world's greatest fighter, a true warrior, but he cannot change his heart. If he approaches the world as something to be conquered, it will make him suffer, and it will swallow him whole. Now, we go to the current time, as Jason finds himself still fighting crime in his own way. Kind of. As he looks through the bushes on Dinosaur Island, he's greeted by three colossal raptors, who are not the typical baddies that one would expect. But just before he could attempt to shoo them away, a long bug begins to crawl down his shoulder. He spins around, flinging it off, shooting it way more times than a bug probably should be shot. But in the process, he scares off the three raptors, ready to make him dinner. He says that it looks like they didn't care much for the bugs either, and that is when Jason notices something dripping down on his other shoulder. He turns and he looks to see a giant T-Rex roaring at him as he says, "Yeah, this makes a little bit more sense." However, he's then saved by an unlikely friend, the best friend that he's ever had. The genetically opposite clone of Superman, now reformed, Bizarro. Bizarro flies by a pterodactyl yelling, "Say goodbye to me, big friend." And as Bizarro swoops in to get the attention of the T-Rex, Jason falls back telling him, "I really need to stop showing him movies." Elsewhere, a fierce Amazonian warrior, Artemis, laughs over the comm, stating that maybe he shouldn't have given Bizarro the password to all of the streaming services that they have. But anyway, are they done yet? Jason struggles to hold the T-Rex's jaw from closing down upon him, and he says that it would go a lot faster if someone was helping. Bizarro yells out, "Not to worry!" And he jumps off his pterodactyl, flying down, scooping up the T-Rex by its tail, bringing it up into the sky. He pauses for a moment when he gets above the clouds and says, "It's very ugly up here." And he smiles, and then he lets go of the tail. As Jason is flung out of the T-Rex's mouth, he begins to think to himself as he awaits his inevitable ending. Sometimes he thinks back to the days when he was at Batman's side. However, back then, and even now, Batman never saw them as equals. Jason would always be the sidekick. They were good together, but it never felt right. It never felt like family. But as Jason hits the ground, Bizarro flies down to grab him. "Me no got you!" And Jason tells him thanks. Now it is him, Artemis, and Bizarro against all odds. They joined forces to become the Outlaws, the Dark Trinity. And sometimes they save the day, sometimes they steal, and mostly they just do whatever they want. But right now, they got a job to do. The second chapter is Dead Before Proven. So how did the Outlaws find themselves on Dinosaur Island fighting, well, dinosaurs? It started 4 days ago when Jason was visited by Franco Bertinelli. Franco is a mob boss murderer, cavity inspector, and presumed dead, which clearly he isn't. Franco wanted to hire Jason to locate and steal back a priceless statue that has been in his family for generations. He doesn't care how much it will cost, he just needs to get the job done. And if anyone gets in his way, he wants Jason to make him suffer. So shortly after their brief run-in with some of the island's larger inhabitants, the three stumble upon the location of where the statue is hidden. Bizarro is completely oblivious to anything while he listens to his music, and he's targeted by a laser. Just as Artemis notices and tells him to get down, he is shot with a rocket. Just as the smoke is clearing, Jason and Artemis go to check on Bizarro, and she asks what was it. Jason says that he isn't sure, but they should probably hurry and get inside before anything else comes, causing a cave-in. Which, seconds after he mentions it, happens anyway. Once inside, Artemis does ask if he thinks that Franco sent a second team. Jason flicks a match, telling him that if he did, he's dead. Deader than he's supposed to be. But as he's holding up his match, Artemis holds up a much brighter torch and begins to lead them further into the cave. She says that she has a feeling that Mr. Mephisio, Big Boss Man, isn't telling them everything. And Jason tells her, people pay us so they don't have to. However, a bit further in, Jason thinks that Artemis might be onto something, because why would someone just hang skeletons up after stealing a family heirloom? Artemis looks around, stating that this could be a warning, but the only question is for what? Jason says, well, lucky for them, they have Superman here to test things out for them. Bizarro happily yells, big problem! He takes one step forward and activates a trap, which in turn shoots an arrow directly into his butt. He then lets out a scream that can be heard around the world. In a flash, Bizarro's eyes glow blue with cold fusion, and he freezes the entire room, but he remains still, taking in deep breaths. Artemis takes a closer look, stating that the arrow seemed primitive in design, but the tech and make is foreign. There only are a few elements in the universe that could penetrate Bizarro's skin like this. But she reaches up, plucking the arrow out, with Bizarro turning back, telling her, no thank you. Once they get moving again, the outlaws come up to a very large stone door, and Jason asks Bizarro if he would do the honors. Bizarro gets ready, but Artemis pulls out her sword. Don't worry, I got this one. She calls upon the power of Ra, and Jason watches, telling her that she's just a show-off. But she does look great cool. You look cool doing it. With a swing of her sword, she cuts through the large doors, telling everyone to be careful, they don't want to set off any more traps. Jason looks up at the altar where the statue is sitting, stating it doesn't look Italian. She then says that they should turn back, they were clearly lied to. Whatever that statue is, it's been here for 1,000 years. Jason asks, what, are you afraid of a challenge? Which prompts the two of them to argue back and forth. Bizarro, however, decides that he's just going to help his friends by going up and getting the statue. He holds the statue up, telling them that he got it. And Artemis turns to him, what have you done? Suddenly, the entire cave begins to shake. As the wall and the ground begins to crack open, dozens of reanimated skeletons crawl their way out and begin to charge at everyone. Jason takes out his guns, putting his back against Artemis's, stating that he'd preferred the dinosaurs, but he'll take the 17 over there and she can take the 8 on the other side. She asks, really? Why don't I take the 17 and you take the 8? The two of them go back to arguing, but Bizarro grabs them both by their collars and flies them upwards for an escape. But that's when he begins to see something, and before he could stop, he crashes into a force field, and the three of them go flying back to the ground. As they get up, Artemis holds out her sword, telling Bizarro to do his thing, and he uses his heat breath on a group of skeletons. But Artemis holds up her sword and begins to take down several herself. After cutting down the last one, she turns back to Jason. See? Easy. But just then, one of the skeletons shambles towards her when suddenly its head explodes. Jason holds out his gun, telling her that he knows that it's hard to tell, but he's smiling underneath the helmet. As more of the cave starts to come down, Bizarro begins to punch his way back out the way they came until they finally stumble outside. He trips, dropping his iPod, but before it can hit the ground, he catches it, yelling, failure! But then there's another explosion behind him, and Jason says that whatever was hunting them down before is still out there. The three hurry back to the helicopter, but just as they suspected, it was destroyed. Artemis pauses for a moment, then picks up a stone off the ground and throws it up into the air. The stone makes a tink sound as it bounces off another barrier, and she says that wasn't there when they flew in. Jason then says it shouldn't be hard to figure out who did this. They just need to use someone as bait. Artemis calls out not it, and Bizarro says it. So Jason says it's going to have to be him. Bizarro yells, he say it, very fair. And Jason tells him that he is so brave to volunteer himself, what a bro. So Bizarro scowls, walking off, and once Jason and Artemis get into position, Artemis says that she wants to get off of this island just as much as he does, but she would like her team to still be liking each other and he needs to be better. Jason sighs, thinking back to the years that he spent feeling expendable, and here he's doing it to someone else. He's gonna make it right. Bizarro moves towards the helicopter as Jason sits up in a tree waiting. At that moment, there's a rustle in a nearby tree, and Jason fires, hitting something, and it sends it to the ground. Artemis runs over to check whatever it is, and as she gets close, a trap is sprung, and she's imprisoned within another barrier. She shouts as she swings her sword, yelling for whoever it is to stop being a coward and show themselves. And at that moment, the voice tells her, you will not like who I am, and I am not a coward. It's Martian Manhunter who floats down, beginning to transform into Artemis, telling her, "And I do not take kindly to thieves here." And there you have it, the first parts of the Red Hood Webtoons. Now, I'm really enjoying these Webtoons things, and I just read an article that apparently people viewing the Webtoons is outdoing normal Batman and Red Hood comic books. So who knows? Who knows where this is going to go? I also like that this one's just a continuation. It's like a continual story of the things that Red Hood, Bizarro, and Artemis are doing. And I wish this was in full continuity, but it's in its own Webtoons continuity, which is still fine. Still loving it, enjoying a ton of it. But if you enjoyed it, I need you to let me know in the comments down below. Give this video a like, give these videos comments, get it out to your friends so that we get more eyeballs on this, and if people like it and want more of it, I will continue covering it right here. Don't forget to check out the link down below so you can read the Webtoon, and you can get early access to our videos by signing up for YouTube memberships or Patreon right here at Comicstorian. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time right here.